Jack waited quietly outside the large glass building. It looked nothing like the places he was used to. Tall, shiny, modern, filled with people in suits walking quickly, holding coffee cups and talking on phones. Jack looked down at his old, worn-out shoes and simple shirt. For a moment, he felt out of place. "Should I even be here?" he whispered to himself, but then he remembered his sister's words from the night before. "You always help others. Maybe it's your turn now." So, he took a deep breath and stepped inside. At the front desk, a friendly woman smiled. "You must be Jack. Mr. Richard is expecting you. Please go right up to the 10th floor." Jack nodded, trying to hide his nerves. He stepped into the elevator, the numbers slowly, ticking up. With every floor, his heartbeat grew louder. Ding. Floor 10. The doors opened to a peaceful, beautifully designed office, plants, books, and a wide view of the city. And there, standing near the window, was Richard, the man with the flat tire. "Jack!" Richard said warmly, walking over. "You came." "Yeah," Jack replied, shaking his hand. "I still don't know why I'm here. I don't have much experience with office stuff." Richard smiled. "Experience can be taught. Character cannot. That's what matters most." He led Jack into a smaller room. A few people were working at computers, while one man stood by a whiteboard explaining something. "This is our creative team," Richard said. "We design tools and systems for small businesses, people who don't have a lot of money or support, kind of like you and me once upon a time." Jack listened carefully. "I want to offer you a paid training program. 1 month. You'll learn how our systems work. After that, if you like it and we like you, you'll get a full-time job." Jack was shocked. "Why are you doing this for me?" Richard looked at him, serious. "Because the world needs more people like you, Jack. And maybe you just need someone to believe in you." Jack didn't know what to say. For years, life had been a struggle, paying bills, taking care of his sister, working long hours. No one had ever offered him a chance like this. He looked around the office, then at Richard. "I'll do it," Jack said. "I'll give it everything I've got." Richard smiled. "That's all I ask." The next few weeks were like a new world for Jack. Every morning, he woke up early, dressed as best as he could, and took the long bus ride to the office. He was always on time, always ready to learn, and learn he did. At first, it was hard. There were so many new things: computers, software, meetings, teamwork. But Jack never gave up. If he didn't understand something, he stayed late to figure it out. He asked questions, he listened, he improved. The team started noticing, "Hey, Jack's really smart. He learns fast. He's got great ideas." Slowly, Jack started believing it too. One day, during a team meeting, the boss asked if anyone had a new idea for a client's problem. Everyone was quiet, thinking. Jack raised his hand. "What if we keep the system simple? Some people don't understand all the tech stuff, but they know how to run their shop. We should build something that feels like them." The room went quiet. Then Richard smiled. "That's actually brilliant." From that day, Jack wasn't just a trainee. He was part of the team. At night, Jack would come home tired but excited. His sister noticed the change. "You're different," she said one evening. "Better? Stronger? Happier?" Jack smiled. "Maybe I'm finally becoming the man I always wanted to be." He still remembered where he came from. The pain, the struggle, the empty wallet. But now, he had hope. Not just for himself, but for his sister too. Maybe she could go to college. Maybe they could move to a better place. Maybe life could really change. But what Jack didn't know was that this was only the beginning. A bigger surprise was waiting for him. A test of character, of heart, and of everything he believed in. Something that would change everything, forever. The courtroom was quiet the next morning. Judge Harris walked in, wearing the same calm expression he always had. People stood in respect as he entered. He sat down, nodded once, and the session began. But something was different. The courtroom didn't feel the same anymore. The strong silence Judge Harris was known for now felt heavy, almost cold. The people who admired him yesterday were now whispering behind his back. The woman from the day before, the one who stood up in court and claimed she had evidence against him, hadn't returned. But her words had left a deep crack in the perfect picture of Judge Harris. He felt it. For the first time in years, Judge Harris felt unsure. His hands slightly trembled when he held the case file. His eyes scanned the courtroom, searching for something, or maybe someone. The clerk handed him the next case. It was a simple theft case. A young man had stolen a few electronics from a store. Judge Harris looked at the file, but the words blurred. He kept thinking about the woman. What did she know? How much did she know? He cleared his throat and spoke to the accused, but even his voice sounded different, less powerful, less confident. The young man in front of him was scared, but when he looked into Judge Harris's eyes, he noticed something strange. The judge looked scared too. Scared of something deeper, something unseen. After the court ended for the day, Judge Harris went back to his chambers. He closed the door and sat in silence. Then he opened the drawer under his desk and pulled out an old file. The edges were worn, and the paper inside was yellow with age. It was her case. The woman who had stood in his courtroom yesterday, her name was Emily Carter. 10 years ago, she was involved in a case that changed many lives. Judge Harris remembered that case clearly. A company had been accused of stealing land from poor families, and Emily's father had taken the matter to court. Judge Harris had ruled against him. Her father had lost everything, and weeks later he had taken his own life. Judge Harris had buried that memory deep. At the time, he told himself the evidence wasn't enough to support the claims, that he did the right thing by the law. But did he? He leaned back in his chair, the file still open in front of him. That's when he noticed something strange. A page was missing. He searched the file again. No luck. There was supposed to be a witness report, a statement that Emily's father claimed would change everything, but it wasn't there. Where is it? He whispered to himself. He didn't know if it was fear or guilt, but something inside him began to rise. For years, he had believed in justice, in doing what was right. But now, doubt was growing like a shadow in his heart. Suddenly, there was a knock at the door. Judge Harris jumped slightly, quickly putting the file away. "Yes?" he said, trying to sound calm. The door opened. It was his assistant. "Sir, someone left this envelope for you. She said you'd understand." He took the envelope slowly. It had no name, just his title, "To the Judge Who Forgets." He waited until his assistant left, then opened the envelope with shaking hands. Inside was a single paper. It was the missing witness statement. Judge Harris stared at the page. It was a clear, signed statement from a former employee of the company, a man who confirmed that land had indeed been stolen, that the documents were fake, that Emily's father had told the truth. Judge Harris's hands began to sweat. He leaned forward, his eyes fixed on the words. This evidence had been hidden. Erased by who? And why was this being brought to him now? After 10 long years. He folded the paper and held it tightly. His heart pounded in his chest. Emily wasn't just angry. She had proof. Proof that he may have made the wrong judgment, or worse, that someone made sure he couldn't make the right one. The lights in the chamber flickered slightly. Outside, the sky had turned dark. Judge Harris knew one thing for sure. This was only the beginning. Someone was watching, and someone didn't want the truth to come out. But now he had the evidence in his hands, and a choice to make. Would he continue to protect the perfect image of his past, or would he finally listen to the whisper in the dark? The next morning, the city woke up to quiet shock. Whispers filled tea shops, newsrooms, and office corridors. People spoke in low voices, not daring to say too much. Something was happening around Judge Harris. The man everyone had once trusted blindly. Emily Carter had returned. And now, she had proof, but she wasn't the only one carrying secrets. Judge Harris sat in his office, staring at the paper in his hand. It was the lost witness report, the one that could have saved Emily's father 10 years ago. He read it again and again. Each word felt heavier than the last. This paper. It had been removed from the case file, and he didn't remove it. He remembered that trial, the pressure, the calls from high-level officials, the threats hidden behind polite words. Back then, he told himself he had no choice. But now, that excuse felt empty. He had ruled against a good man, and that man had died broken. Judge Harris leaned back in his chair, closing his eyes. For the first time, he allowed himself to feel something he had locked away long ago. Shame. A knock at the door broke the silence. It was Mr. David, his loyal assistant. "There's someone here to see you," David said, his voice low. "She won't go without speaking to you." Judge Harris already knew who it was. "Let her in," he said quietly. Emily walked in. No anger on her face now, only calm, sharp determination. She placed a brown file on his desk. "I didn't come here to fight," she said. "I came to finish what my father started." Judge Harris opened the file slowly. Inside were more documents, reports, names, closed cases, all tied together like a puzzle that had been hidden for years. "I've been collecting these for a long time," Emily continued, "and you're not the only judge involved." A full month had passed since Jack joined Richard's company. Each day, Jack arrived early, worked hard, and stayed late if needed. He never missed a task, and he treated everyone with kindness, whether it was the janitor or the company director, too. Many, Jack was just a hard-working guy trying to make something of his life. But to Richard, Jack was more than that. He was a reminder of something pure in a world full of greed and selfishness. But Richard had one last thing he needed to know about Jack, something that couldn't be seen in a classroom or office. A test. A secret test. One morning, Richard called his assistant. "I want you to prepare something," he said. "A new project?" she asked. "No, a situation. I want to test Jack's heart, his real character. Not just how he works, but how he reacts when no one's watching." She nodded slowly. "You want to know if he's truly honest?" "Yes," Richard replied. "I believe he is, but I need to be sure." The next day, Jack came to work like usual, but this time, things were different. Richard told him, "Jack, I want you to help with something special today. I've arranged a visit to one of our old stores. It's a quiet place, but it needs help organizing inventory." Jack smiled. "Of course, I'll do my best." But what Jack didn't know was, this store wasn't just an old location. It was the stage for a secret test. When Jack arrived, the store manager handed him a clipboard. Just a few things to check and count. Boxes, labels, tools, and if anything is damaged, report it. Jack nodded and got to work. It was a small, dusty store. No cameras, no fancy systems. Just shelves and silence. As Jack moved boxes, he noticed something strange. One of the toolboxes was heavier than the rest. He opened it and was shocked. Inside was a small pouch. He looked closer. It was full of cash. Jack stared at the money, confused. Why would anyone leave this here? He looked around. No one was watching. No cameras, no signs. Just him and a bag of money. He could easily take it. No one would know. His heart beat faster. He remembered all the hard days, the unpaid bills, the broken shoes, the late-night hunger, and this money, could change things fast. But then, he remembered something else. His mother's voice, long ago. Always choose what's right, even when no one sees it. He closed the pouch carefully, stood up, and walked to the manager. "I found this in one of the boxes," Jack said, handing over the pouch. "I don't know how it got there, but it didn't seem right." The manager raised an eyebrow, but said nothing. "Thanks," he replied. What Jack didn't know was that the manager immediately called Richard. He passed. The next day, Jack was called to Richard's office. He walked in, unsure why he was there. "Have a seat, Jack," Richard said. Jack sat. "I heard something interesting about you yesterday," Richard continued. "Something about a bag of cash." Jack looked down. "Yes, I found it while cleaning. I gave it to the manager." "Why?" Richard asked. "Because it wasn't mine." Richard smiled. "Even when no one was watching?" Jack nodded. "I wasn't raised to steal, sir." Richard stood up and walked to the window. For a moment, there was silence. Then he turned back. "Jack, what you didn't know is that was a test. I placed that money there. On purpose." Jack's eyes widened. "A test?" "Yes," Richard said. "I wanted to be sure. I already knew you worked hard. But now I know something more important. You're truly honest." Jack was speechless. "That kind of honesty," Richard continued, "is worth more than any degree or title. And because of that, I want to make you a permanent member of this company. With a promotion." Jack blinked. "A promotion?" "Yes. You'll lead our new community outreach project. It's a program to help people like you, young men and women from small towns with big hearts and no support. You'll train them, guide them, and offer them the chance I gave you." Jack's eyes filled with tears. "I don't know what to say," he whispered. Richard smiled warmly. "Then just promise me one thing." "Anything," Jack replied. "Someday when you see someone like you, help them, pass it on." Jack nodded slowly, and in that quiet moment he realized something. Life doesn't always reward the loudest voice or the smartest mind. Sometimes it rewards the quiet, honest hearts that choose what's right, even when no one's watching. The city was no longer calm. The news of Judge Harris's confession had broken the silence that once protected the powerful. Newspapers, news channels, and social media were filled with headlines. "Trusted judge exposes deep legal corruption," "Emily Carter's fight sparks national outrage," "Justice was a lie until now." But behind the headlines, danger was growing. Emily wasn't safe anymore. The black van that followed her now stayed parked near her apartment day and night. The silent phone calls continued. Her email was hacked. Her neighbors were questioned by strangers pretending to be police. And still, she did not run. She had come too far to back down. Judge Harris, once respected and untouchable, now had a different life. His phone was filled with both threats and support. Some people praised him, others cursed him, but the biggest shock was yet to come. One evening, while going through old records on his home computer, Judge Harris found a document he didn't remember saving. It was hidden deep in an old folder labeled Backup Personal. He opened it and froze. It was a message from his best friend, Judge Raymond, someone he had known for 20 years. The message was short, and it was clear. "You were never supposed to dig this deep. You've put us all at risk. If you don't stop, we won't protect you anymore." Judge Harris leaned back in his chair, heart pounding. Us. Who were they? How deep did this go? The next day, Emily received a package. There was no sender name, no note, just a small flash drive inside. She plugged it into her laptop and opened the single video file. It was grainy security camera footage from A courtroom hallway. The date was 10 years ago, the day of her father's case. The video showed something shocking. A man in a black suit taking a file from a clerk's hand, walking into Judge Harris's chambers, and walking out without it. That file was her father's missing witness report. The man was Judge Raymond. Tears welled up in Emily's eyes. This was the proof she needed. The final piece. She called Judge Harris immediately. "I saw the video," she said. "Raymond stole it." There was silence on the line. "I know," Judge Harris replied softly. "He warned me last night. I think they're preparing something big." That night, Judge Harris didn't sleep. He kept the lights off and the curtains drawn. He stared at the photo of his daughter, who was away at university, far from the storm. He hadn't told her anything. He didn't want to scare her, but a message arrived on his phone at midnight. "We know where she studies." His hands trembled. It was no longer about justice. It was about survival. The next morning, the courthouse looked different. Police officers stood outside. Reporters were kept behind barricades. Something was happening inside. Something big. Emily arrived. First, then a few lawyers. Then a group of activists who had followed her story from the beginning. And finally, Judge Harris entered. But he wasn't alone. He was flanked by 2 police officers, not as protection, but as escort. He was being arrested. Reporters shouted, "Questions. Judge Harris, is it true you helped cover up cases? Did you accept bribes? Are you protecting Emily Carter or using her?" He said nothing, only looked at Emily. And in that moment, she saw it. He wasn't angry. He wasn't scared. He was ready. Inside the courtroom, everything changed. The judge now in charge, not Raymond, looked serious. "Judge Harris, you are being investigated under suspicion of obstruction, misconduct, and breach of justice. Do you have anything to say?" Judge Harris stood up. "Yes," he said firmly. "I'm guilty, but not of hiding the truth. I'm guilty of being silent for too long. Today I speak not for myself, but for those who suffered while people like me stayed quiet." Gasps echoed in the room. He turned to Emily. This young woman gave up her safety, her peace, and her life to do what we were too afraid to do. I stand with her, and I won't run anymore. The court went silent. Emily felt something inside her shift. This fight wasn't over, but the world was finally listening. Outside, Judge Raymond sat in his car watching the courthouse from a distance. His phone buzzed with a single message. "She won't stop. Neither will he. What do we do?" Raymond stared out the window, jaw tight. "It's time," he replied. "We bury them both." The city was holding its breath. For weeks, the truth had been slowly rising. Truth about corrupt judges, stolen justice, and innocent lives destroyed. The court had become a battleground, not between lawyers, but between lies and truth. At the center stood 2 people, Emily Carter, the daughter of a broken man, and Judge Daniel Harris, the man who once helped break him. Now, both were fighting, on the same side. Emily sat in her room the night before the final hearing. She stared at the documents, the video proof, the threats, and the long path that brought her here. Her father's voice echoed in her mind. "Never be afraid of the truth, Emily, even if you have to stand alone." But she wasn't alone anymore. Judge Harris had risked everything, and tomorrow both of them would face the most powerful man still hiding behind a mask, Judge Raymond. In the early hours of the morning, police raided a private law office in the city's most expensive building. They found documents, cash, and hidden files, all connected to the same group. Judge Raymond was not in the office. He was already inside the courthouse, wearing his robe, sitting on the judge's bench, pretending everything was still normal. But Emily had planned everything. She entered the courtroom with quiet confidence, behind H.